And welcome. I'm Coach TaShon, author, radio show host, and your certified relationship coach. This safe space for women has been created for weekly candid conversations about life's trials, challenges, and keeping the faith through the fire. So grab your favorite snack, beverage, blanket, or journal and get ready to listen and celebrate these testimonies of truth, trust, and triumph. And tonight, we have with us a very special guest, Miss Valerie Smith, a poet and scholar. And let's welcome her tonight. How you doing?
I am wonderful, Coach TaShon. Thank you for having me.
It is so great to see you. As we were saying, talking earlier, I didn't realize it was family Valerie Smith. And I'm just like,
Yes.
oh, I'm super excited. So I want thank you so much for supporting and wanting to come on and so forth. So I'm gonna tell them a little bit about you. I'm like, poet. I didn't know that you were a poet. We talked about it, but people
A
say
little
they
bit.
write poems and they're like, you were so modest with it. You were just like, oh, I write poetry. And I'm sitting here listening. I was like, oh, she is a poet and scholar.
Oh,
So listen, you all, Valerie A. Smith, she loves writing poetry. And it's important for her for the voices to be heard. She studied in the PhD program at Georgia State University. She earned the Master's of Professional Writing at Kennesaw State University, where she is currently a lecturer of English. She is a 2022 Tennessee Williams Scholar at Swanee Writers Conference and a 2020 resident at the Hambidge Center for Creative Arts. Her poems appear in Aunt Chloe, a Journal of Artful Candor, Typehouse Magazine, Oyster River Pages, Wayne Literary Review, and many more. She enjoys writing nonfiction essays, scholarly research, and book reviews. And most of all, she loves spending time with family. So, welcome again, Valerie. How are you today?
I am wonderful. Thank you for that wonderful introduction.
Yeah, I was like,
Yes.
oh, I said she's a poet. That's a big accomplishment. A
Thank
poet.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
So look, let's dive right into it because again, I know this journey hasn't been easy. Because again, when we first talked, you were just like you said, right? But that's a big deal.
Thank
That's
you.
a big
Thank
deal.
you.
So how did you become a poet?
Oh, that takes us all the way back. I think I wrote my first poem when I was 9.
Mm,
I was one of them, and I started writing really early, and I was just thinking about it the other day.
yeah,
I don't know when the first time, poetry usually have shorter lines,
yeah,
and I don't know when the first time I wrote something and didn't go all the way to the end and just kind of went to the next line.
yeah,
But I've been writing a long, long, long time, and did a lot of different things, editing,
yeah,
technical writing, all that, real jobs,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Right. All along the way. And it just came down to it that
yeah.
if I was going to be a writer, I felt like I needed to study and really find my way to put my best foot forward.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. And
So
so yeah.
when you started writing again, back then, when people say, "Oh, I want to be a writer," you don't think of that as a career. And so other people are like, "Oh, okay, well, she just writing. That ain't."
Hmm.
Did your family have other expectations of you, what you should be or what
Oh
not?
yes.
Or- Tell us a little bit about that because a lot of people, especially our families, and I love family, I love my family, but when you think creatively, it's hard to sell that creative moment to your family because they automatically want you to be a lawyer, doctor, teacher.
Right.
But a writer, no.
And honestly, I didn't know either.
Okay.
And I didn't know how to become what I needed to be.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so, I didn't blame my folks for asking the questions, well, how you gonna make money?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you go to school, and I knew the only thing I could do was write. So I chose an
Yeah.
English major.
Okay. Okay.
Right. And I was writing along the way, and here and there I would get, a poem published here or a poem
Yeah.
published. Very exciting. But I still didn't know, there wasn't a path for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So, and I can say that they supported being a writer, but they
Yeah.
supported the creativity.
Yeah.
But yes, you got to find a way to, you got to
Right.
find
Get
a
a
way to
job
make
there.
money.
You got to keep right.
Yeah. You got to get a job. You got to get a job. And so I
So,
did, yeah. So very early, I had some copy editing jobs, some
okay.
journalism jobs, some editing jobs at a few little magazines, and I worked for a construction magazine. I worked for the Apartment Guide. I worked for
Okay.
things like, along the way.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
was cool. That was cool.
Right. So throughout college, well, as you said, you knew that you were going to write. You wanted to be a writer. It was just that feeling that you had. And so you started in college and whatnot. So tell us about, were there any trials and tribulations along with writing and that whole journey? Because it seems like it's not stressful. Writing is not stressful. You write, you're really clearing out your thoughts or whatnot, and you're being you. That is, I love writing because it allows you to be authentic and so forth. So tell us about that journey.
So that journey is interesting, and it did kind of come to a head. So, and
Mhm.
it kind of went along with my youth and maturity, right?
Okay.
So, and my spiritual maturity as well,
Okay.
right? And so part of why I became a writer, and it wasn't all traumatic
Yeah.
experiences, but like you said, cleansing out your feelings
Right.
and all of that.
Right.
Um, so I did a lot of that. And then at some point in my I guess, early 20s, late 20s, I felt a shift.
Okay.
And to where, um, a shift to where, how could I say, I won't say the poetry took over,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't doing good for,
Okay.
when I say, poetry and writing can be cathartic.
Yeah.
Almost like sometimes you ever listen to, like, if you're in a down moment, you really shouldn't be listening to down songs,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
because you need to get out of that space,
Right.
right. And so I think it was a little bit of that. So it also, that coincided with me and my family's spiritual journey.
Okay.
And
Mm.
one of the early points in our spiritual journey, listening to the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
And you know how you're in church and
Yeah.
you hear something that nobody else heard but you.
Yeah.
Yes. And so what I heard was, why are you carrying all that stuff around?
Wow.
And so what I had, every place that I had moved or gone, to school, this place and that
Yeah.
place, I had all these like 300 odd poems that I
Wow.
had written since I was very young that
Wow.
weren't really doing, and they were becoming more of a burden
Mm.
than they were of anything else.
Really?
So, and this is how look, I messed around and tested the Lord.
Don't
Because
we all? We don't we all? Because we grown.
we got what we think we grown,
Right.
right? So I said, well, wait a minute, Lord, because he was like, throw it away. And I said, well, wait. And
Mm.
he said, and I said, I'll throw away. I said, but I write about you. I know I write about you. He was like,
Yeah.
all right, okay. I said, I'll throw away any poem that is not about you or doesn't have you. So you know where this is going, right?
Right. So look, you negotiating with God.
Negotiated. I said, I'll throw it away. And I came down to one poem.
Wow. Out of
And
300.
yes, ma'am. And
Whoa.
I said, that's what I said. And I was like, okay. And I tossed them. I tossed
Really?
them journals. I tossed I put them in the trash. I tossed them.
Oh
And I
my
said, Lord,
God.
I won't write. I said, Lord, I won't write another word. I won't write another word till you tell me so.
Okay, so wait a minute. I'm sitting here gasping because and I'm pretty sure you didn't save them on flash drives or anything like that.
You know what? I didn't know, but my husband's a techie, and he found them years later.
Really?
I
But
haven't really used them, but yeah.
so you throw away, and I'm thinking, I'm like, oh Lord, you didn't throw away your creativity. However, you had to be obedient.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh, that was
Yeah.
hard.
It was. It was. But it was also freeing.
Mm.
Actually gave me I mean, just talking to you about it, girl, you bringing it out.
Listen,
But
and
it was almost empowering too.
so all of the words that you've written down that were, because again, poetry, I don't want people to understand that this is a gift when you're able to release the words from from your mind and whatnot. And poetry is so deep. I love poetry, and it has different. It's art. It's a form of it's art. And so when you're thinking you've written all this down on that paper, and now God wants me to do what? He wants me to throw it away. What? Wait a minute, Lord. Now I'm not understanding this. So
Hmm.
you kept one, but He told you to get rid of all of them.
Well, right, because there was only one left. So what's that one gonna do? It's no good.
Mm,
So
look, I'm
I
slipping.
and to your point, the gift, and
Mm-hmm.
I recognize. I said, Lord, you know what? I know it is a
Yeah,
gift from you,
yeah,
and if you want me to write, I
yeah,
will.
yeah.
But until then, I'm not touching it.
Mm.
If you tell me what to do, tell me where to go, what I'll do it. But I'm not. I said I'm.
Wow. How challenging was that for you though?
It was challenge. It was at I was well basically I was at that point
Okay.
where, like I said, it really wasn't doing me any good anyway.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I kind of was okay with
Okay.
letting it go
Got
and giving it to the Lord. Like, all right,
that. You know what? That's powerful because many of us we're holding on to stuff and we know that we need to release it and give it away, give it to God, but we don't want to do that. And in
yeah,
and in a sense, it hinders us from moving forward what God has for us. And so when you're sitting there and you're like, okay, I don't want to let it go, I don't want to let it go, but I know I gotta so you had this whole, what they call it, revelation or all of
revelation.
this
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
through poetry.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, look, I got to sip on my coffee. I'm
We
I'm
got
sipping
that.
on my tea. They say sipping on my tea. I'm sipping on my coffee tonight. Okay, let's finish because this is deep. That's
Yeah.
that's powerful. I don't know if you realize that or not. That's powerful.
And I really only have talked about it a couple, maybe a handful of times.
Mm.
Because I guess, like you said, I'm when I hear it, I'm like, yeah, I guess it is. But but I do know, like, what wound up being really God was
Hmm.
that it wound up being, and I did not do this on purpose. Like I said,
Yeah.
when I let it go, I let it go.
Right.
But it wound up being 7 years.
Oh, you know what seven is.
I know. And I didn't know that till somebody else told me. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, okay.
Really?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And I had gone through a whole bunch of things and finally was like, well, let me try to get back in school, or took a class or something
Yeah.
like that. And as a matter of fact, I was taking a class where, like you read in my bio, as far as nonfiction essays, right?
Yeah.
So I was taking a class on that, which
Okay.
is not poetry.
Right.
But
Right.
I talked about it a little bit, but everybody in the class was like, well, where the poems at?
Mm.
And so I think I wrote something, and then I went and realized that I had been writing in my church journals.
Oh, wow.
So when you go back and look at, your scripture journals and all,
Yeah.
God was like, I had you.
Wow.
He
That's
had you.
amazing. That's amazing. I
You
don't
gonna
know
make
if
me
you
cry because
realize
I'm
that's amazing. Because we think of God, when we think of God, we think about, we think of church and we see the preacher and the choir, and we see the what you call it, ushers. We see the physical people and their titles or whatnot, but God also ministers through words, you know,
yes.
and that's
Yes.
what it seems like he was doing with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I mean that still remained the way I process things.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, he had me the whole time. So I don't
That's
know where to go.
That's amazing. So after you realized it's the 7 years, what
Hmm.
was next for you? After you like the when you finally realized it, it's like, oh, wait a minute. What was the next process or next step for you?
So then the next step, and this kind of lays out how and I've realized how God works. And he kicks me into out of spaces and into places.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
so like I said, I had taken a class and I was kind of getting the urge. Okay, well, if I'm gonna do it, let me learn how to do it. So
right.
Kennesaw State had some poetry classes,
Yeah.
and they actually had a master's program. And
Yeah.
I had applied and applied, and they actually denied me.
Really.
Right. And this is now I have a witness. So this is how it happens. Okay. I got a letter saying, you get an email back saying, no, you didn't get in.
Yeah.
I'm opening that email, reading that email at the table, and I get a phone call saying, ignore the message. You're in.
Really.
Yes. So that started me with with that creative writing program
Okay.
at Kennesaw State.
Okay.
And a, the next semester, um, just uncanny, somebody asked me how I felt about teaching.
Okay.
And I said, well, I don't know. I'd done some after school stuff. I was
Yeah.
like, I don't know. They were like, well, if you teach, you get free tuition. I was like, okay.
Right. Enough said.
Enough said. And so what I didn't know, and a friend translated this for me,
Yeah.
that first open door
Okay.
was not just one door,
Yeah. Yeah.
that it wound up being almost like a hallway.
Mm.
Because when I finished, or right before I finished the master's program, that was a master's program,
Okay.
a mentor there, dear mentor, said, oh no, you'll go on, and when you apply for the PhD. And I said, say what?
Mm.
And it hadn't dawned on me at all.
Really?
Had
So that
not
wasn't
thought
your
of it.
plan?
No. I
Really?
was just gonna take the master's and teach from that point.
Yeah.
But you have some mentors that can see,
Yeah.
or just people in your life
Yeah.
that can
Yeah.
see more than you can see.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I just finished that program in December.
Oh, you got your doctorate.
Yes, ma'am.
Congratulations. See, you so modest. You just like, yeah, I got it. Okay. That is wonderful. When is graduation?
Oh, we just had it was in December.
Okay. So
And the
you Dr.
icing,
Valerie Smith.
yes, ma'am. And the
You,
icing on the cake,
you better
Coach,
use her name. Look, you better use that doctor name.
the icing on the cake is that the book comes out in 2024.
Oh, wow.
My first book
Your first book so it'd be
of
poetry.
poetry. Yes, ma'am.
Oh my gosh. Look at God. That is phenomenal. Congratulations,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Smith.
Thank you.
Y'all heard it
Thank
right
you.
here on Woman on Fire podcast. Dr. Smith, Oh, that is beautiful. So where do you go from here? Like, so will you continue to teach and so forth at the college?
Yes, I'll continue to teach. I'm looking forward to teaching. I'll eventually get into a creative writing position. But I wanted to share one more thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, but there was a couple. There were more challenges, right? That
Yeah.
whole graduate school that's
Yeah.
what I really signed up. When I was like the challenges of graduate school.
Yes. Yes. Please tell us because whoo, I remember.
Yes.
Remove. Yes.
So I didn't have it so much in the master's program, maybe because I was just
Okay.
so eager, didn't notice. But that imposter syndrome.
Yes. Please talk to us about that, especially among African American women.
Yes. Yes.
What was that like for you?
So I felt it more in the PhD. It was a smaller program, your
Okay.
smaller classes.
Yeah.
And everybody seems to know everybody.
Yeah.
And it's funny, the imposter syndrome stories all kind of sound the same.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when you're in it, you're like, what is going
Exactly.
So I'm in these classes and I know everybody is nice and
Yeah.
I just finished a master's. So, I made it in, like I applied,
Right.
I'm here.
Right.
But you start to question yourself. You
Yeah.
start to question, am I supposed to be here?
Mm.
Right. And it's just the oddest thing. And so and I'm already kind of an introvert. I really
Yeah.
am. I'm loud right now, but for real, I'm an introvert.
Right. Right.
So I felt that every time I spoke,
Mm-hmm.
you could hear a pin drop.
Really?
And like the air would go out of the room. Like, oh my goodness. And thank God for good friends.
Yeah.
And you have to have a support system,
You do. You do. Definitely.
right?
You
Right.
definitely do.
So I called, I mean, right after class, I'm on the way home from
Right.
class. And this friend of mine, we actually went through the masters at KSU together.
Okay.
And I know she would be fine with me telling this story. Well, I'll just leave some parts out. But she said when we were in the master's program together, she felt herself. She was explaining everywhere that she went because she had a different degree somewhere else before she got there.
Okay. Okay.
So she said, Valerie, I felt the same thing when I got into that program that we were in together.
Yeah.
I found myself saying, but when I was at such and such,
Yeah.
but when I was at this other school, but when
Yeah.
and she was like, well, why am I explaining this?
Yeah. Yeah.
And she just encouraged me and said, they are just going to have to get used to hearing your voice. And because I told her I was this close to not speaking the rest of the semester. Right. I was like, I can't just say something in the room, go.
Right. So were you, when we talk about that, the imposter syndrome, like you said, you hear other stories about it, but you don't think it is going to happen to you. Did you have an idea, or was it something that just came over you, just being in the midst, and you just like, wait a minute, where is this coming from? Did you question it, like, where is this coming from? Because I'm confident in everything else, but where did this come from?
Right. And thankfully I didn't take it personally.
Okay.
Right. I didn't take it personally.
Yeah.
From the folks in the group.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I knew it immediately, like, okay, they just know each other.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They, you come into a program that's already in motion.
Yeah.
And so they've been together, whether a semester or 2 or 3 before already. They know each other's work. They know each other's voices. They know the sound of their critique and their, there's a rhythm to the class.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I just, for some reason in that setting,
Yeah.
I was just taken aback. And
Yeah.
but
Wow.
I did notice it. So I didn't take it personally on them.
Okay.
Right,
Okay.
which is
Yeah.
good. And so, or
Right.
the instructor, right?
Okay. Gotcha.
So that's probably why I reached out, because I was like, it's got to be me. I'll just be quiet.
Yeah.
But no, my friend said, no, it's not you. They just
Yeah.
have to get used to hearing your voice.
Wow.
And so don't stop speaking,
Yeah.
and don't stop doing. You are there for a reason. God knows you're there for a reason.
Wow. That's amazing. And I'm just sitting here in awe because again, you're so humble with it. And that's the beauty of your spirit and whatnot. Because I always had a hard time growing up with the confidence sometimes. And like you said, you know that you're talented or whatnot, but when you get amongst other people and you see what they're doing, and you're like, oh, okay, so everybody can twirl a baton. Okay. All right. Well, or and then you're thinking, but wait a minute, but God gave me this gift and he gave you that voice to be heard.
Yeah.
And if you did not speak or whatnot, it's like, okay, wait a minute, Lord. Then he's gonna feel some kind of way because it's like I gave you this to do. And again, your
Yeah.
poetry is ministry. It is
Yeah.
ministry. It is
Yeah.
that wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. I
And to
can't wait
this
to come and
day,
save
a
my life.
lot of us are, yeah, to this day, a lot of us are still really close, and we still
Yeah,
share our work. So
yeah.
it worked out. But I've been there, definitely been there.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And that is a testimony of triumph because again, sometimes those things, just those little bitty things can deter and have deterred a lot of women because they feel like, okay, I'm not supposed to be here. Then you know what? It's just not meant for me to be. And it's like, no, that's the enemy trying to tell you. That's the enemy telling you. But God, what did God say?
Yes.
You
God
know?
said he definitely put you there. And it is hard, especially as Black women. We often are the diversity in the space.
Yeah.
And there might be a little bit more this way or that way.
Yeah.
But growing up, I won't say always been, because my high school was predominantly
Okay.
Black or
Okay.
minority,
Yeah.
but I've been in much more spaces where I'm the only
Yeah.
either female or African American female
Yeah.
in the space.
Yeah.
And it's not something that you're necessarily supposed to be used to. You're not
Exactly. Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
not supposed to say, well, I'm just used to this. Well, no, that's
Right.
not, you never really get used to it.
No, you don't. It's not easy. Over time you start adjusting and you're like, okay,
I
well, I
think
know what
we get used to it, but
yeah,
some of that where folks aren't accustomed to hearing your voice is because
yeah,
you're still the only one.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm taken back from it because again, we skip over art and we skip over again, as women, we think about, okay, well, God got me doing I'm not on this big platform on this stage or whatnot. And so we minimize what the gifts that God has given us because it doesn't look like anybody else's. But
Mm,
your gift is powerful and it's
thank
going
you.
to reach so many people. And so before we end, please tell us a little bit more you said the book is released in 2024. So
Yes.
countdown.
Yes.
Countdown.
Ah,
What will this entail? What is it going to be about?
so my poems are they are about womanhood, they're about
Mm,
Christianity, they're about the
mm.
Black experience.
Okay.
And so there are also some poems. I can't say every poet writes about nature, but I'm
Yeah.
definitely, I still write about the trees and forests and all that.
Yeah.
I love it. But one new kind of journey that I've been on, part of my dissertation was on the Black arts movement, the poets of the 70s, the late 50s through
Yeah.
the through the late 60s, early 70s. So
Okay.
you're talking about Sonia Sanchez
Okay.
and oh goodness, and I'm just drawing a blank now, but
Yeah.
but she's one of my favorites. Oh, her and Etheridge Knight wrote
Okay.
love poems to one another, and
Okay.
just that whole experience of Black culture and Black love and Black life
Mm.
being free to be on the page. And
Mm.
of course, as far as justice,
Yeah.
and equality is definitely there, and empowerment for
Yeah.
people is definitely there. So when I started to read them, I realized where some of my poems were coming from.
Mm.
Right. And then I was like, wow, okay, that's, and it's been there, right? Since the
Yeah.
Harlem Renaissance, since the earliest of Black poets, it's been
Yeah.
there.
Right.
But I just hadn't, that period to me is just, even starting with Gwendolyn Brooks, who was a little bit earlier
Yeah.
than, right? Just, oh my goodness. I just really fell in love with those poems. So that just helped me recognize the strength of what was in my poems.
Yeah.
And I know we're running out of time, so
No, no, you don't rush. I was going to ask you if you could read one or two.
I would love to.
Yes,
I would love
please.
to. So this one is one of my favorites. I'll start with a light one, if I can find it. Where is it? And it's actually a prompt that we call it ekphrastic poetry when you write about another art.
Okay.
Oh goodness, I don't have it. Wait a minute, I do have it. I had it in front of me. I'm sorry.
No, no apology.
What? Okay, let me pull it up real quick. I do want to read this one. Okay.
I can't write a poem to save my life, honey. I
Yes,
would
you
write them. I
can.
just want to just put the words down. I used to want to write poems. I'm like, no, because trying to rhyme the words and the end and I said, that's just no. That's y'all's gift. That's y'all's gift.
Okay, so we all have seen um, Good Times,
Yeah.
right? And the beginning
Right.
montage. Am I still visible? Because I've got my screen open.
Yeah, you are.
Okay. Um, in the title montage to Good Times,
Mm-hmm.
there is a painting, and that
Yeah.
painting is called The Sugar Shack by Ernie Barnes.
Yeah.
Right. And people have been talking about it. I've been hearing about it more lately. But here, this is my poem. If you want to, you can pull up an image to look at it.
Okay.
It's all over the internet.
Right.
And this is called The Sugar Shack. Right. You can picture it. Everybody's dancing.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So this is The Sugar Shack, Ernie Barnes, 1971.
Mm.
Ernie says, eyes closed. Feel this funky bass bottom blue. Big Daddy Rucker on that sway belly sax. 2 hands trumpet blowing the air out this joint. Preacher man got the spirit leaned back on the mic. Old Pop Porter sitting by his bottle, thinking on ways he used to grab them gals by the hips. Same old news. Sophisticated white dress sings the blues. Lean in, red dress, lean out, breathe. Denim slacks, derby hat, moan and groan. Not 1 square foot without an upturned foot. Not 1 plank board without a pump. All this brown skin moving, brown fingers feeling. All this electric light shining. Bald heads, says Ernie. Let us be thinking, skeletal, human, heads high. Let us be open and closed-mouthed, ecstasy and existential. Let us be bountiful, double round, bottom, yellow daisy. Let us be bosom and backbone, womb and man. Let us take each other one-handed. Ernie says, all my muscles necessary. Sinews stretch and bend past work, work, work all week, week, week. Show more of us in our shirt sleeves limp with sweat. Snap and tap, rise and dip. And if you can feel it, you know Fat Mama up there giving Shady Slim the you know what about it. And if you don't know what we doing, you ain't grown enough to get in. Celebrate her thighs, Ernie says. We are the Black Arts Moving.
Wow, the snaps. Oh wow.
Thank you.
And I was picturing poet, the portrait, and your words with it.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
That. So will that be in the book?
That will be in the book.
Oh wow.
Yes, that will be in the book.
That's talent.
Yeah.
That's a gift.
Thank you.
That's a gift.
Thank you.
Did you have another one for us?
I do. This one is also a favorite. It came out of we'd love to visit Charleston, South Carolina.
Okay.
And my husband and I, we've been visiting, and we haven't been in a couple of years. I think right at the pandemic. I think right before so. But we've been several times to the point where we feel like we're locals, right?
Yeah.
But every time we went, we learned more about Black history.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And you know that over half of, more than that, I think, of enslaved Africans came through the Charleston ports.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so, like I said, every time we went, we learned something new.
Yeah.
And this is in the voice of Charleston.
Okay. Okay.
So as if Charleston could speak.
Yeah.
So it's called Holy City, Charleston, South Carolina.
Okay.
I was once free to give and let live until the tides turned ship after ship against my shores, ripping my sandy skirt, shredding me like blades of Bermuda. This womb survived like a twin grabbing his brother's ankle, fighting for birthright over a bowl of she crab soup. I never said welcome when they entered spilling souls. Militant is my middle name for battling malaria against the masses and the missuses. Grandmothers used to call me a haint, and here lies Princess Schwahala. Welcome, and we become each other's suicide pact. I'll die if you die. That's what he must have said when he cut Christ down at Mother Emanuel. You say I'm your favorite place to visit, and I laugh because I'm in your feet standing on my shoulders. I'm in 100,000 pairs of daylight eyes. Spend the weekend wading through my bones. My bosom gleams moist with milk. My babies, snake-bitten, drowned by Ashley and Cooper. Listen to the wind weeping. I serve a meal so rich in blood you might become cannibal. So fed up with the change of my complexion, I can't afford to look you in the mirror. Return to folly. My blueprint reads like Smalls and Equiano calling from the earth. 400 years later, and I am the closest you'll ever get back to Africa.
Whoa. That one is deep. That's deep.
I know it's a lot. It's a lot.
That one, I can imagine that one wasn't easy to write.
You're right. It wasn't, because I had to reconcile with myself. Going as a tourist, loving it, loving the food, loving the space. And it's just speaking back to you.
Yeah. And so now you're like, literally, you have to step back, and you're looking at it as, wait a minute, it's different from these eyes that now God has opened for me to see.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
And there are so many places in this country that are like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? That have that fraught history.
Yeah.
And they're beautiful.
It is. And we don't really realize, like you said, we go and visit as tourists, and we're looking at everything. Oh, this is, but the history behind it is so rich and so deep.
So rich and so deep.
Wow.
Thank
That's
you for opening
amazing.
space for everything.
Yeah, look, I cannot wait until this book comes out. When is the release date? Do you have a date for it?
Yes, the date is April of 2024.
Okay.
And it sounds long, but
It's
I
not.
it because
Look,
if
it's
somebody
tomorrow.
said, well, I was about to say, if somebody says it comes out tomorrow, we would not be ready.
Right. It is
Yeah.
tomorrow. It's next week. The way the time is going.
Yes.
Wow. Well, listen,
Yes.
I cannot wait until it comes out. So listen, before we go, how do we support you? How can we connect with you on this journey? Because we need those words. We need those words. All right, let me ask you this. Are you going to use that part of your curriculum in teaching?
Some of it. So
Yeah.
I'll definitely be teaching from the Black Arts movement.
Yeah. Yeah.
I cannot wait to, for that opportunity. I really can't wait for that.
Yeah.
I so that'll come along with the teaching opportunities. Until then, more poems will be published individually. So
Yeah.
I'll give you my website, which I know needs to be updated, right? We know
Yeah.
that. But my website is valeriesmithwriter.com.
Okay.
And I believe that is also my Instagram, which doesn't have a whole lot on it.
Okay.
So don't be disappointed. But I'm on Twitter a little more frequently, and
Okay.
that's gonna be at Valerie Poetry.
At Valerie Poetry. And your website is valeriesmith.com.
Valerie Smith Writer.
Writer. Okay. .com.
Yes. Yes.
So, and we will be able to purchase the books from there, or are you going to have to do a book
Yes.
signing?
I
Okay.
will be doing book sightings. So I'm looking around for places now.
Okay.
Definitely around the Atlanta area, seeing where I
Yeah.
can travel at places where I have family and friends. And
Yeah.
so that might be New Jersey, that might be Alabama.
Right.
So looking forward to it. If you
Yeah.
want me to come read, I'll be glad to read
Listen,
anywhere.
I'm already, you see, I took my notes. You will be back. So we're going to go ahead and get this calendar together. Go ahead and line up your April. You listen, because we need to hear these words. And the
Thank
way
you.
the curriculum is going now in education, with them trying to ban books and ban
Yes.
our words, we
Yes.
need you. And this is people are so worried, and especially our community, we're so worried about what they're doing to us. But guess what? God gave us the power to keep going. We don't need that. He's already given us the tools to say,
You
wait a
doing
minute.
it.
You're right. It's like, wait a minute. Here's a poet who's going to give you the words that you need. So
Oh,
listen, I definitely, you will be back. Listen,
thank
and I'm
you,
gonna have you on
TaShon.
some other platforms because again, this is just not. I want people and I want women to understand poetry is just not, oh, that's just no, 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 no. Your words have power. God speaks of the power of your tongue. It's not just saying it verbally, but writing it as well. And
Yes.
you're speaking life back into our culture. You're speaking life back into women. You're speaking life back into all of us.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
oh, it's just amazing. I really am.
thank
I'm just
you.
I love poetry. Like I said, I can't write. I'll write some words, but that's y'all's
You definitely writer, and I want to give a shout out to all the parents out there that might have a little writer at home
yes.
and they're unsure of what to do with that little writer at home.
Yeah.
I'll be glad to help. I didn't know that my favorite writers are teachers. Nikki Giovanni is still at
Yeah.
Virginia Tech. Yusuf Komanyaka is still at NYU.
Mm.
Natasha Trethway just left Emory. I forgot where she went to, but yeah. So my favorite poets. It just seems like a safe space for some.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
For some writers. So,
right.
but even before that, ways to encourage our young writers out there.
Yeah. And they need that. They need that. Oh, I am just excited for you. I really am. I am excited for you. Because again, this is it's just not poetry. It is a gift that God has given you. And I'm looking forward to just hear your name all across Atlanta, all across the country, literally, like really. And just I want everybody that cannot wait until your book comes out because we're gonna make sure people get it. We're gonna make sure people get it because it needs to be on that bookshelf in the household. So listen, I appreciate you. I thank you so much for coming on. And any last words you want to say to anyone? A shout out to anybody.
I just shout out, thank God for bringing us all through this journey.
Yeah,
We're all walking it out. We're listening to God. We're listening to the Holy Spirit, and
yeah,
we are, um, we're walking it out. And
yeah.
he hears you. He
Mm,
hears your prayers.
mm,
And in the darkest nights, I know, we always say don't fear, don't fear. But in the times when I've been afraid, He hasn't left me. So
mm.
He doesn't leave, He says don't fear, but if we're afraid, it's
Yeah,
still okay. It's still
yeah,
okay. He's still with you.
yeah.
And yeah, but I know that's not very poetic, but
No,
that's how I got through.
that you know what? Stop saying that because that is
Oh,
poetic. That
thank
is
you.
because we need to hear that again. And with your voice, it's soft. Listen, you need it. In the times that we're living out, you're needed. Your voice is needed. You know.
God bless you, Coach. God bless you, Coach TaShon.
Woo-hoo,
Bless you.
listen, we're
Yes.
gonna do this. Like you said, we're gonna walk it. We're gonna walk it. It's our time, God's people. It's our time. And
Yeah.
this is where we're supposed to be at this time. So I thank you so much. Listen, I'm excited. Like I'm like, listen, that's my family. She got a book of poetry. So listen, I thank you so much again. You are a woman on fire. And again, you guys, thank you all so much for tuning in. And if you have a story that you want to share, please reach out at iamtrinetteLcollier.com and let's connect. But until next time, please stay on the path and just give God a chance. Give God a chance. Like you said before, just let it go. Let it
Thank you.
go. And
I
look at
love
you
that.
now. You let it go
Give
and look
God a
at you now.
chance. That's right. That's right.
Thank you so much. You have a great evening, and you all out there have a great evening as well. We'll see you next
Thank you.
time. Bye.
Bye.